Thank you everyone who's kind of on board for joining us for our very first live Q&A regarding our BizUp Buffalo Survival Kit series. Yay! We are super thrilled to have two of our TA providers, which basically set off this series. We have Mr. Michael McCarley of SBEI. He functions as a director, and we have Laticia Harris, officer of Financialgevity. She's the founder of Financialgevity. So what we'd like to kind of give you a heads up is our first tool is necessary communications. And, you know, again, with the help of our TA providers, we were able to get some, I'd say, vital information out to people right now that are looking to understand, one, how to communicate with your creditors. So in this particular time, a lot of people are nervous because maybe they don't actually have, you know, income at this moment. So they're worried about, are they going to get evicted if they can't manage to pay their rent or their mortgage? What kind of financial assistance is actually out there regarding, you know, credit card payments, car insurance, car loans, things like that. So Laticia is our guru today that will kind of gear you through how to make sure you can kind of stay in a good place. You know, you can kind of maintain your credit, and maybe things that you should know that you can maybe kind of start building your credit so that when it's time to get out of the pandemic, you can hit the floor running and really start applying, you know, for maybe loans or again, the best thing is to make sure that your credit is as high as it can possibly be. Then we have Mr. McCarley on deck, which is going to help us learn really how to sell in the midst of a crisis. So this kind of takes it back to some foundations. You know, if you've seen, which we hope you have, our videos on YouTube. Again, he talks about the foundations and, you know, maybe how you're using technology and the importance of not forgetting the human factor, right? So we still, maybe not right now, we're seeing people face to face, at least, you know, virtually. But in a normal world, we actually interact with each other. So we want to make sure that people still remember that and don't think that actually that technology is going to, you know, kind of do everything for us. So with that being said, I will go ahead and send it over to Laticia so she can kind of get us started.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so someone in a question in regards to the extension on the rent moratorium. Yeah, that he did extend it until August, but I mean, really, that's just for late fees and not being able to evict people. So if you're able to pay, you definitely want to pay. And as mentioned in the video, if you're not able to pay, it's best to get, you know, ahead of it by actually contacting your lender. Sometimes your lender or your landlord. Sometimes it can be nerve-wracking when things are going down, and a lot of people, their first reaction is to shut down or stop reading mail. Do not do that. Read your mail, contact lenders. A lot of the times they want to be paid. They'll rather work out an agreement than have to pay to evict you, pay to find a new tenant, pay to foreclose on you. So they do want to work with you. So most of the time it's just you coming to them and actually starting that conversation.
It looks like we do have a question. It says, how do I protect my credit in the midst of a crisis?
Okay, so just as outlined in the video, there's a number of things that you can do, but the first step is to contact whoever it is. One of the things that I mentioned in the video is just that you can actually get your credit report. Annualcreditreport.com is offering it weekly, whereas previously these reports were only available once annually. So now you can get your updated credit report every week. And that's where to start, because a lot of people think, oh, the gas company's on my credit report, or my cell phone's on my credit report, and those things are not on your credit report. So get your credit report. It'll allow you to see who is actually reporting to your credit report, and then whoever it is that you need assistance from, whether it's student loans, your car note, you would contact them directly in order to seek the assistance that you need. Now, even though we went over what options are available during the pandemic, a lot of these options are available all the time. They're not just specific to the pandemic. So, for example, student loans. If you run into an issue where you're not able to pay your student loans, forbearances are available all the time. Contacting them about a graduated payment or different payment options, these things are available all the time. It's just about, starting the conversation and going from there. There was another question on here about the Experian credit boost. So I have mixed feelings about the Experian credit boost. The way that it works is for Experian only. So it's not going to report to all 3 credit reports. It would be specific to Experian credit report. You would allow them to link to a bank account, and they'll search the account for things that continually come out. So one of the biggest things that usually comes up is like your cell phone bill. If you pay it out of that specific account, then it will start reporting those payments to your credit report, which would potentially create a new line of credit. Potentially additional payments are being reported timely, and then that can boost your credit score. But you don't have any control over what they decide to pick up or what they decide not to pick up. And then fluctuations on when payments are taken out can be negatively affected. So some people it works great, because if you don't have any credit at all and you need something on your credit report, then it's going to help out. But it would only help out, of course, again, for Experian. If you're looking for something that can help your credit, one of the great tools out there is Self-Lender. It basically reports to all 3 credit reports. It allows you to it helps you save money. And then essentially the way it works is they take a CD out for whatever amount you agree to. It could be $500, it could be $1,000, and you decide the terms, whether you want to do a year or 2 years. And every month they'll take out a payment. So say you decide to do the $1,000, they'll take out $89 out of your account. And each time that they take the payment out, it's going to report to your credit report as an on-time payment. But you're not actually making a payment, you're actually saving towards a goal. And at the end of that goal period, you'll get all the money that you saved in a lump sum, and you'll have additional line of credit reported to your credit report with on-time payments being reported. Another option is a secured credit card. You put the money up front, and it's going to report 30% of your score is your credit card utilization of that card. So keeping it under, they say the rule of thumb is 30%, but most people with scores above 850 are using less than 7% of that card. So if you're looking for a boost, those are 2 things that will give you an automatic boost and are sometimes a little bit better than Experian boosts.
Laticia, there's a question asking, can my landlord kick me out because they've not gotten rent in a couple of months?
Currently, there's the moratorium that we were talking about. They're not able to evict you at this time, but as soon as the moratorium is over, they are able to evict you. So looking for that option to schedule some type of repayment, if you can get that agreement previous to the moratorium being over, will be more beneficial to you than just not doing anything. So you want to definitely contact your landlord to see if they would agree to something like that.
Okay, and is that just residential landlords or commercial as well?
My understanding was that the moratorium is for all landlords, including the commercial, but commercial leases are a little different because they're contracts that usually stem over a number of years. So it's a little bit different, but the moratorium affects both. That's what my understanding of it was.
It looks like someone's saying my landlord is attempting to intercept my stimulus check. Can he do that? And what can I do to protect myself?
No, I did see that there were landlords attempting to get their tenants to agree to giving their stimulus check to the landlord, but they can't force you to agree to do that. They're not technically entitled to that money. But like I said, once the moratorium is up, if you don't pay your rent, they can evict you at that time. So it's best to, if you can, make an agreement or pay your rent. Other than the moratorium, there isn't anything else in place to protect, well, other than landlord tenant laws, which vary depending on how long you've been in the house. But other than that, there isn't any actual protection for it.
Okay. And I'll just go ahead and I'll kind of include, there's a website, homenewyork.org, and they're advocates for housing opportunities made equal. So they have some resources if that in fact is something that someone is currently going through. I'll just add that in the chat here. But we also have, it looks like, let's see.
Right, and currently, I don't know if people were aware, if they're looking for specific legal advice, I'm sorry, I don't want to misquote it, but there is something that previously was only available to like parents with kids in school, but they've opened it up to everyone, where they can actually get free legal advice. It's and this was in the Buffalo newspaper, but I don't know if anyone else seen it. The helpline at elderjusticenewyork.org. You can email or you can call 844-481-0973 with any questions. Usually they're responding within one business day. So if you're have questions and if you need assistance from an attorney, that they're offering that service at this time.
We have a question saying, is it true that your deposit can be used for rent during COVID-19?
I didn't see anything in regards to that. Some landlords may be agreeing to do that, but there's really no incentive for a landlord to take your security deposit as rent, because then they won't have anything actually securing the building that you're in from damage when you leave. So I haven't seen anything in regards to that, and most landlords I know wouldn't agree to that.
Okay. All right. And someone is asking, I need to move. Is anyone moving during the pandemic? Are there any restrictions?
I haven't seen anything in regards to any restrictions about moving. Certainly, just you want to be safe about moving anywhere at this time.
Mhm.
That's why they really have the moratorium in place too, because it's going to be harder for people to just, if they get evicted, to move to a new place.
Okay. Gotcha. And then I guess, do you have any tips for renegotiating a commercial lease for small businesses?
I don't have any actual tips in regards to that. The best thing you can do is to review your contract and to see, if there's anything within your contract that allows for renegotiation. But I would read through the contract first, and then go from there.
Okay, thanks.
Zahara had made a comment, and I want to kind of piggyback off of it originally. One of the things that's been very interesting about COVID-19 is that, of course, it has created not just a new normal, but it has put us in a position where the use of technology, which is one of my concerns or pitfalls in the beginning of my presentation, concerned me because I don't want technology personally to overtake individuals' attempts to push their sales. Although I am clear that a lot of companies are being forced to go online now to figure a way how to sell online, but there is the necessity, even in going online, to really, you have to feel your customer, your client. I think a lot of what we see, what we deal with, and this is not everybody, but there's this thought that there's really a different methodology to selling, which there is if you're doing online than if you're dealing with somebody face to face and in person. And the reality is you're still dealing with people. And so you have to be able to empathize with the particular client. Now, someone had actually asked me, because I talk about the need of the client and understanding the pain point. The pain point for some people might actually be a pleasure for them. So don't get me wrong, the pain could be an inconvenience, it is a need, I need this particular issue solved. But that issue being solved might actually be a pleasurable one. Like an individual that sold candy over the countertop now is forced to sell it online, and the product was a very good product. But there were some difficulties in figuring out how to get it out there into the mainstream so that they could actually keep operating. But to be able, again, to empathize with the client. I also mentioned, as a part of the dynamics of selling, features, advantages, and benefits. Nowadays, a lot of folks are not talking as much about the advantage because it is a little longer. But what is really a feature that you have on what you're selling? And it happens to be a factual item, whether it's a can of corn, or it happens to be, in the example I use, which was a sleeping bag. But that feature has got to benefit the particular client in some way, shape, or form. And you could always sell a can of corn because somebody happens to be hungry. So is that the pain point? Is that the need? Or is it that the person just happens to like corn? But what kind of corn do they like? Do they like sweet corn? Do they like cream corn? I don't even think most people are old enough on this line to know anything about cream corn. There are a couple of us. You know, is it from the Green Giant and it's frozen? And so, you know, there's a certain group that's the only kind of corn they'll actually eat. But if you don't ask the client, and you're not able to really create a value in the client's heart, it's very, very difficult ultimately for the client to buy. I mean, yes, okay, I'll pick up a can of corn, but when I come shopping again, I may not be interested in corn. I might want string beans now, or I might want something else. So when we're selling a lot of our services, and especially those people selling services, these are people that a lot of times don't necessarily know you. They don't know what you do. They've never met you before. They've never had a conversation. And you have to present an aspect of value. Why do you buy from me? Why do you want to buy from me? Why would I, and asking myself the question, why does that person buy from me? What can I give them? You know, I got lawn services. Well, you know, there are 200 and something lawn and garden services listed in the yellow pages. I just open up a book and put my hand to it. But even with regard to the spot ads and the internet connectability that we now have, when you're doing a particular website and the landing pages that you're actually using, what's calling out to me that says, oh, there's something about the land service that you do that's a little different, and something that's going to, again, provide a benefit for me. You're always going to be challenged, but ultimately, you really have to understand and be real comfortable with what it is you do. how you do it. You have to gain trust. And if you're not able to gain trust with your clients, as time goes on, it becomes a little more difficult to actually keep that client. I think it's been stated that it's a lot easier to actually sell to an old client than it is to actually gain a new one. And so if we keep that in mind a lot of times, I think it will serve us well for the products and services that we have, whether it's offline, which is a face-to-face, or there's a necessity to convert now to selling my products and services online.
Hey, Michael, this is Dion. I see one of our borrowers, Antoine Jackson, is on the call. Antoine has a cleaning business. And I think that Antoine is in an industry that is primed to do well within this pandemic, because everybody's going to need, you know, and all businesses are going to need industrial type strength cleaning now because of COVID-19. How does Antoine pivot to, and how does he stand out from all these other cleaning companies and services out there so that he can benefit from the great need for his services during this time?
Hello, Anton. How are we doing, sir?
Doing well, doing well. How are you?
Good, good.
Good.
So with that particular example that was actually given, you have a website?
I don't currently have a website.
Okay. Because you don't have a website, what you might want to consider is putting together at least what I call an informational website or a landing page.
Okay.
Primarily identifying, other than who you are, what it is you do, but I would actually highlight a particular type of cleaning you do, and more interestingly, is there a process you have that might be different? Now, let me be clear here. Most individuals really don't have an idea of industrial cleaning. Is that what you do, commercial cleaning for the most part?
Yes.
Okay. Most individuals don't really have an idea about commercial cleaning and what's really involved, and some of the federal as well as state statutes that actually exist with regard to how certain surfaces should be cleaned and things of that nature. But if you have a particular methodology that's unique, you are using products, i.e., all natural. Now, I'll be honest with you, most of the folks that I know, most of the products they're using are not necessarily all natural, but they actually will do an interesting cleaning job. But, are they all natural? Are these products that are actually produced and certified by your company? That is one way to begin to separate yourself with regard to what you do. Another, as a part of the landing page or the informational website, would actually be to identify who are your commercial clients that you're providing some services for. Because you might be providing services for somebody that's a neighbor to somebody else, and they say, oh, yeah, I heard you got this young man, Antoine Jackson. I understand he does cleaning. How's his work? Oh, the work is freaking fantastic. Oh, it's fantastic. Okay. So can I get a number? Can I get him a call? That call actually expands your relative network. Additionally, we're also talking about expanding that network on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The testimonials. Do you get testimonials from your clients?
Yes.
Okay. So part of your testimonials also should be a part of not only your landing page, but a capacity statement that eventually you develop, which in fact can turn into the information that's a part of your website. But as long as you can go after, like you said, you have some commercial clients, you go after others, you happen, they always talk about the problem of dropping names, but but I happen to be doing a couple of buildings, on the Bosch Alarm, complex in Rochester. You know, oh, really? Okay. So that's something that we can talk about. Never give them a price, however. At the time, tell them, you know, I'll get back with you. But promote yourself in what you do, what you talk about, how you present yourself on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. But push it out there, but be very clear. You want to begin to think about what it is that you kind of do differently. Yes, you do commercial cleaning. But what is it about your commercial cleaning that's unique? Do you have 24-hour service? Do you have emergency call service? These are the kind of things that put you one step above everybody else who's probably larger than you are because they're not able to move as quickly. You can come in, you know, like flood disasters, things of that nature, which is another environment. I got to clean up, but I also got to sanitize. You know, my workers use special PPEs. We're coming in with, you know, spacesuits to sit around and, you know, battle COVID-19 and tackle it down and put it into the ghost catcher. Okay, you know, those are the kind of things that you want to let people know and understand. And it does not have to be long. My thing is short, sweet, and simple.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Think so.
Okay.
Gave me a lot of good tips that I can use.
So we'll look forward to seeing you in Ebony Magazine and Jet and Enterprise in the next couple months. All right.
There you go.
So, Mr. McCarley, we have a couple other questions that have come through, so I'll kind of backtrack a little bit. It says, one of them is, can you talk about how to balance the need to focus on short-term solutions and long-term vision for your business? How do I both, you know, like how do I do both right now in the crisis?
Well, technically you do it one at a time. You have to take a look at what it is and take inventory of what you have. In taking inventory of what you have, you then have to visit, what was my vision to begin with? What was my long-term planning all about? In taking your inventory, it allows you to see what you have and do not have. And sometimes you have to rewrite the longer plan. You have to change it slightly. So, you know, I wasn't going to be able, or was looking to retire at 55, which might have been in 10 years. Now I might have to push it out to 62. But if I have to push it out to 62, what does that actually mean for me? What is it I need to do? You know, if I have certain employees that, you know, I had to lay off, what do I need to do to possibly bring those employees back? What is that cost factor that's going to impact me? And I have to put it in that plan. But you have to do one at a time. Where am I now? What do I have? Where was I ultimately looking to go? And what do I need to do to potentially change or redirect myself in a manner to ultimately get to my final goal?
Okay, and then based on that, for people who have been closed down, what should they be doing as they open their business back up?
Well, if they've gone and take relative inventory and they're looking to get ready to open back up, you know, there's a new normal of business. And so if it was a physical store, then do you have all your safety requirements actually in play to deal with the interaction of individuals walking into your particular establishment? If you're in an online business and for some reason you happen to slow up and it looked like you weren't doing business for a while, you again have to take a look at what is it that I needed to do to open. But now, I don't want to say it's like a grand opening, but you know, you have to remind people that you're still there. You have to contact your customers, and you have to be able to work with them and talk to them about what it is and what your intention is in opening back up. You know, I don't have as much product as I had beforehand, but we're expecting some in the next couple months. So you want me to put an order in for you. This is a side note. Anybody that's actually in business, doing business, or trying to transact some form of business, sometimes it's not always about really making a sale. Sometimes you may have an ability or a resource to actually help somebody else. Now, I'm not saying, unfortunately, we do everything for free, but sometimes your customers really appreciate the fact that there are some things that you can do for them that they weren't able to do. You know, I've got some sanitizer, which is a part of my store that I normally sell, but, you know, people really need it. And so, you know, so I'm gonna send you a couple bottles, you know, because I want to be able to help you. And this is my contribution also to helping the other businesses that actually exist and are trying to get back in the game.
Okay, perfect. And so I guess maybe to add on to that, one of the questions is, how can I best add lines of service during this crisis and offer that value to my existing clientele without them having them feel like I'm desperate or grasping at straws?
Well, I would first initially have to ask the question of why you're adding lines to the particular services or products that you actually have. Unless those particular products or that additional line set that's going out is specifically addressing issues that are going on with your client base and you can afford to actually do it, I always don't think that's really a great idea. I mean, we were in business and we provided certain products and services because of our ability, resources, and talents. Adding lines of service all of a sudden kind of sometimes gives people the particular impression, well, you know, I got some green candy now as opposed to red candy. Come on and get it because I'm out of red candy. And oh, by the way, we're adding some chocolate bars. I know because I know you really want some chocolate bars. But your primary business in the store was selling clothing. Now, initially, folks are going to catch that. But after a while, it's going to be real apparent. It's like, well, wait a minute, you originally sold clothing. Why is it you're selling candy now? Is it because you don't have any money? You're trying to make some more money, trying to get some more money out of your clients? Do not go into other lines of business. And this is just me. My suggestion is that you don't go into other lines of business unless you can really justify that that's going to be a permanent line of your business and your growth. And that you need to figure out, can you keep what you had beforehand as a part of old lines of services? Or are you going to terminate those other lines of service because you're moving into a better area? But keep them in the same genre, in the same relative category. Because if you go outside of that category, you end up spending a lot more money than was ever originally anticipated.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess going back to, I know you mentioned kind of dropping names or, you know, getting some referrals based on certain customers. But one of the questions is it a good idea to ask customers for references? And how do you recommend that they do that?
Yes, I think that and it's not even so much for the aspect of reference, because reference normally means that I've actually done something for somebody. If you're talking about, you know, asking someone for referrals, oh, definitely. Definitely ask me, do you know someone else that possibly needs the same services that I've actually provided for you? And all you do is ask them outright. Because if you don't ask them, first of all, you'll never know if you're going to get an answer. And a lot of times the people we deal with, this is how our businesses actually grow. Oh yeah, I know someone I can refer to you. And a lot of times that person that's being referred, the individual that referred them will call them and say, listen, Mr. Hyde is actually going to call you up. I referred her to you because I just had some work done. I thought it was great, and I thought about you, and I thought you needed the same thing. But it's always, always, always ask for referrals, always. And just ask, you know, because if you don't ask, you won't grow. I noticed there was a piece here for test that was the aspect of testimonials.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yes. I think everybody, you provide some aspect of service, you need to give them a quality assessment type of questionnaire. And you let them know, we're interested in knowing how you felt about the services in which we provide, but I also want to let you know that some of the information is not going to show your name or anything like that, but we also want to tell other customers how people feel about the work we do. Testimonials are enormously critical for micro enterprises. And that's what I consider, and I don't know if there's any big business people that are actually on the call today, But testimonials are enormously helpful because, again, if you've done work for someone and they've actually been happy with it, you know, you let other people know. People want people who've done good work for them. That's just how we function in a matter of human nature. I'm going to be slow about saying that some of the bad testimonials you're going to have to put someplace at some point, but your good testimonials, definitely put them out there. Let people know. And like I say, I'm doing some work in Bashalam, IBM, University of Rochester. I happen to, and it's such hard work. I'm dealing with, 532 residential places that I'm actually cleaning, but, we're getting it done. We're making people happy. Their homes are, sanitary. I'm doing lawns. The lawns are green. We're doing a fertilizer treatment as a free product for some of our new clients that are actually coming on, that normally carries a value of about $40 or $50, but we're adding that for free. And if you see what I just did, you state an aspect of value. Person's not going to pay for it, but you're stating an aspect of value. And then when you send them an invoice, you send them an invoice based on what it costs you to do the work, but you also put down, and fertilizer, $40 value. Price that you pay for it is $0. It becomes a secondary reminder to individuals that, okay, there was something you actually kind of added, and my grass is now looking greener. I don't have dandelions, and you did a beautiful job.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, Ms. McCarley. So it looks like we actually have a question for Laticia. It says, do you know if you can apply for unemployment and PPP loan?
My understanding on this is that you can, because the PPP loan is more of basically it's protection for your employees, and unemployment is for yourself. The PPP loan, 75% of it has to go to employee wages for you to even get the loan forgiven. But there's a lot of other things within it. I would suggest going to maybe your local lender to get more information in regards to what option is best for you, because the PPP is not for everyone, and the unemployment thing is not for everyone either, depending on what your legal structure is, whether you're doing it as a DBA or a LLC.
Okay. And let's see.
Can I add I want to add a statement to that particular piece that Laticia said, and she's correct. You can do unemployment. As unemployment is what's called the pandemic unemployment. So individuals who traditionally could not apply as a sole proprietor, independent contractor, 1099er, you now can actually apply under the provision that's been put in place because of the pandemic. For the PPP, as a sole proprietor and independent, you are the employee. So you may not necessarily hire anybody, because people should be aware of the fact that as a DBA, you cannot put yourself technically on the books as an employee. But for this particular recovery and stimulus under the PPP, you can put yourself down as a singular employee, but you will identify based on the questions that you are just that you are a sole proprietor. So you can do both. There is great confusion that exists because the reality is there are a lot of things that were put under the PPP, including the SBA economic injury disaster loan piece, which also was another piece that sole proprietors could and can still apply for, but you need to do that quickly. The other major difference is PPP, you have to go through a financial institution or a non-banking institution that's been certified by the Small Business Administration. That is what's making the PPP even more confusing, because you need to find a bank that's going to take some applications. And there are some folks that are actually in play. My understanding is Pat Stone is going to be one of those folks soon. Is that right, Hubert? Oh, you got your mute on.
We still don't know. Sorry, we're
Okay.
trying. But, in Buffalo, Pursuit is one, so people know them. In Rochester, the Genesee Federal Credit Union is doing PPP loans. So those are some if people were unable to get PPP loans through their through the bank that they have an account with, they could try those two.
Cool.
To answer Antoine's question in regards to the payroll taxes, my understanding is that you cannot use the PPP for payroll taxes.
Okay. And I guess, is there anything else you're suggesting, or that's just kind of money you would have to pay out of pocket? Or is there any other loan, I suppose, you could use for that?
You can use the money for that, but in order for you to get it forgiven, that portion of the loan is essentially going to be just debt, and you used it for that. Because to get the forgiveness, there's very strict guidelines on what they're allowing for that, and the taxes wasn't included in that. So if you're using 75% for the wages, you're still going to end up with actual debt for that.
And I'd just like to add to that people shouldn't be totally focused on the forgiveness, although that's the important element of the PPP loan, but you're still getting a 2-year loan at 1% interest, which is better than you can get a loan anywhere else probably. So if you're using it for other purposes, you don't have to just think that the only thing you can use it for is for the payroll and the things that will provide forgiveness, even though that is the greatest benefit.
Thank you. And so we have something in here saying, can you just explain the difference between moratorium, forbearance, and forgiveness? So those terms seem to be a little confusing for some people. So I guess, Hubert, if you want to take that, or Laticia or Michael, whoever wants to kind of jump in on that one.
So the moratorium is basically, it's like a timeout. So when there's a moratorium, that means that it cannot be done during that time period, but it doesn't mean that once that time period is up, it won't happen. So it's basically like a timeout. Forbearance is similar to a moratorium, except for forbearance is usually a term just used by lenders. So a forbearance, like if you get a forbearance on your student loan, during that time period, you're not making any payments and it's not negatively being reported to your credit report, but it doesn't mean that those payments aren't racking up at the end. You're still going to have to pay them. And forgiveness is just that it wipes it away. It's as if it didn't, wasn't there.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else? Any other questions or anything you'd like to add?
I would just say for the business owners, because I know there was a question earlier about what they should be doing, why they're waiting to open back up. Kind of just to piggyback off of what Mr. McCarley stated about making sure they have the safety precautions in place, but also just looking to see, what were your deficits in your business when business was business as usual. This should be a time for us to be making sure that we're running our businesses as efficiently as possible. Sometimes when you're in the day-to-day of it, you don't have a chance to actually sit back and be like, okay, are we handling our business the best way that we can? Are we looking into other suppliers that can give us better deals? Are we looking into services that streamline from what we already provide? Are we contacting our customers the best way that we can? Are there other things that we don't offer that we should be offering? So not only just from a safety perspective, but also from a perspective of, what can we be doing better when we do reopen?
I agree. Thank you, Laticia. So I know we're just about 4 minutes to closing time. So, I want to thank everyone that joined our conversation today, particularly Laticia and Michael, for providing us with the content for our first tool, Necessary Communications, in the BizUp Buffalo Survival Kit series. Again, I really think this is something that not only our current clients, but just everyone in general should keep in mind. These are things that we really need to know, not just when we're in a time of crisis, but, as Laticia said, like, are we being as efficient as possible in our own businesses, even in our own personal finances? And then again, to touch on how to sell in the midst of a crisis. Are you interacting with your current clients and potential clients as effectively as possible? Make sure, do not forget that we are human, and humans tend to like interaction. So just kind of keep that in mind. I will give everyone a heads up. We are, throughout the month of May, we are going to continue with the BizUp Buffalo Survival Kit series. So again, Mondays and Wednesdays, new videos will be posted on our YouTube page. The next tool is regarding financial projections. So again, deals with money, something everyone's kind of curious about in this particular moment. And on Fridays, we are going to be having our live Q&As. So again, please feel free to join in on the conversation. It's going to be something similar to this one. So if you've seen the videos, you can come with your questions on Friday, or if there's anything else that kind of, throughout the conversation, if a question is kind of prompted, that's what we're here for. We want to get as much information across to people so they can be well informed. I'll put the link in the chat. So if you can kind of see that. That link will take you basically to a landing page. You can click on the the BizUp Buffalo Survival Kit series, and it'll take you to subscribe to our YouTube page. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. I will put our email in the chat as well. Let's see. So it's bizupbuffalo@pathstone.org. There's that as well. If for some reason you're not getting our emails, definitely send us an email so we can add you to our email list and make sure that you're getting all the notifications so you can be well informed on this series. We also have small business community forums that we're doing with our partners and, really, again, small business owners. So that's a conversation, I would suggest people to start participating in, so we can kind of go through any questions you have or see if there's a way that we can assist you. And if there's something that we can't do, we're usually pretty good at finding out who can help you. So again, thank you all for participating. Thank you all for joining and kind of gracing us with your presence and allowing us to take, some time out of your day. I hope you gained some knowledge out of this live Q&A, and we look forward to having you in our next one. So stay tuned. And again, next week we have our tool number 2. So keep tuned in. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Success.